It was a super quiet Saturday afternoon in our little cul-de-sac. A cul-de-sac is just a fancy word for a street that ends in a circle, like a dead end where cars can turn around. Our houses sat in this cozy loop, and everything felt calm and peaceful. The sun was shining bright, warming up the ground. Little birds were chirping happily in the trees, hopping from branch to branch. It was one of those perfect days where you just want to sit outside and relax. And that's exactly what my giant canine dog, Max, was doing. He was sprawled out on the porch, snoozing away like he owned the whole place. His big furry body took up half the steps, and his tongue was flopped out a little, like he didn't have a single worry in the world. Now, Max isn't just any dog. Oh no, he's special. He's a canine dog, which means he used to work with the police. Yep, Max was a real police dog. For years, he ran around sniffing out trouble. His big nose could find things like lost stuff or even bad guys hiding from the cops. He was super smart and super brave. But now, he's retired. That means he doesn't work anymore. He just lives with me and takes it easy. I think he deserves it after all that hard work, don't you? Me, I'm just Jake. I'm a regular guy who likes things nice and quiet. I don't want any fuss or trouble. I just want to chill with Max and enjoy my day. Our house is small but comfy. It's got a little front porch where Max loves to nap. The porch has a wooden floor and a railing around it, painted white. There's a big tree in the yard that gives some shade, and Max likes to lie right where the sun peeks through. He's a big dog, really big. His fur is black and brown, and he's got these floppy ears that wiggle when he's happy. When he sleeps, he snores a little, and it's kind of funny. That Saturday, he was so comfy that he didn't even move when a squirrel ran by. He just kept dreaming, probably about chasing rabbits or eating a giant bone. But not everyone in our neighborhood likes seeing Max on the porch. See, we've got this one lady who's always making a big deal out of everything. Let's call her Karen. That's not her real name, but it fits her perfectly. Karen is the boss of our HOA. HOA stands for Homeowners Association. It's like a group that makes rules for our neighborhood, like how tall your grass can be or what color you can paint your house. Karen loves those rules. She thinks she's the queen of the street because she's in charge of the HOA. She walks around with this clipboard, writing down anything she doesn't like. If your trash can is out too long, she writes it down. If your flowers aren't perfect, she writes it down. She's got her nose in everyone's business, and she never stops complaining. Karen lives 2 houses down from me. Her house is super neat, like something out of a magazine. The grass is always cut just right, and her mailbox has little flowers painted on it. She's got these fancy curtains in her windows, and she's always peeking out, watching what everyone's doing. I swear, she's got eyes like a hawk. Nothing gets past her. And that day, when she saw Max sleeping on my porch, oh boy, she was not happy. Not one bit. To her, Max wasn't just a dog taking a nap. Nope, he was a big problem. His furry self on my porch? That was like a giant red flag waving in her face. She couldn't stand it. Let me tell you a little more about Max, because this is important. Like I said, he's not just any dog. He's huge, like, bigger than some kids. When he stands up, he's almost as tall as my waist. His paws are big and strong, and his tail wags like a broom sweeping the floor. But he's super gentle. He wouldn't hurt a fly. Well, unless that fly was a bad guy, I guess. Back when he worked with the police, he was a star. His old handler, Officer Dan, told me stories about how Max would sniff out clues and help catch people who broke the law. One time, Max found a lost kid in the woods just by following the scent of their jacket. Another time, he barked so loud he scared a robber into giving up without a fight. Max was a hero, plain and simple. Now that he's retired, he lives with me. I got him a big comfy bed, but he likes the porch better. He'll stretch out there for hours, soaking up the sun or just watching the world go by. The neighbors love him, well, most of them do. The kids down the street call him Officer Max and bring him treats sometimes. He's like the king of the cul-de-sac, just chilling and keeping things peaceful. But Karen? She didn't see him that way. To her, he was too big, too messy, too everything. She didn't know his story. She didn't know he used to wear a special police vest and help keep people safe. All she saw was a giant dog on my porch, and that was enough to set her off. That Saturday started like any other. I was inside, sipping some lemonade and reading a book. Max was outside, snoozing away. The neighborhood was quiet, except for the birds and the sound of a lawnmower a few streets over. I figured it'd be a lazy day, just me and Max hanging out. But then I heard the sound of Karen's flip-flop slapping the pavement. Flip, flop, flip, flop. I peeked out the window, and there she was, marching toward my house. Her clipboard was tucked under her arm, and her phone was in her hand. She had that look on her face, the one that says, "I'm about to make trouble." My stomach did a little flip. I knew this wasn't going to be good. Karen stopped right in front of my yard. She stared at Max, her eyes narrowing like she was sizing him up. Max didn't move. He didn't even open his eyes. He just kept sleeping, his big chest going up and down with every breath. I stepped out onto the porch, trying to stay calm. "Hey, Karen," I said, giving her a little wave. "Nice day, huh?" But she didn't care about the weather. She pointed at Max and said, "Jake, what is that doing on your porch?" Her voice was sharp, like a teacher scolding a kid who forgot their homework. I looked at Max, then back at her. He's sleeping," I said. "It's his favorite spot." But Karen shook her head so fast I thought it might fall off. "No, no, no," she said. "That dog is too big for the porch. It's against HOA rules. Dogs like that belong in the backyard or a kennel, not out here where everyone can see." I tried not to laugh. "Max, in a kennel? He'd hate that. He's a free spirit now, not some caged up pup." But Karen wasn't joking. She was dead serious. I leaned against the door frame, sipping my lemonade. "He's not hurting anyone, Karen," I said. "He's just napping." But that only made her madder. Her face turned pink, and she waved her clipboard at me. "This is a safety issue," she yelled. "What if he jumps on someone? What if he scares the kids? I'm not putting up with this, Jake." I shrugged. "He's not jumping on anybody. Look at him, he's asleep." But Karen wasn't listening. She was already tapping on her phone, muttering to herself about rules and fines. Here's the thing, Karen had no idea who she was messing with. Max wasn't just some random dog. He was a K9, a police hero. And me? I wasn't just some guy who didn't care about rules. I knew something she didn't. See, Max still had friends on the police force. They liked to check on him sometimes, just to make sure he was doing okay in retirement. And that day, as Karen stood there yelling about my dog, something was about to happen that she never saw coming. There was a secret waiting to pop out, and it was going to turn her whole plan upside down. So, what do you think Karen did next? Did she give up and go home? Nope, not a chance. She was too stubborn for that. She decided to take it to the next level, and that's where the story gets really juicy. Stick around, because you won't believe what happened when she saw Max napping there like the king of the porch. It's going to be wild. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, and trouble was brewing fast. Karen, the bossy lady from down the street, came stomping over to my house. Her flip-flops made a loud slap, slap, slap sound on the pavement with every step she took. She was mad, really mad. In one hand, she held her phone, ready to use it like a weapon. In her head, she probably thought she was the queen of the whole neighborhood. She stopped right in front of my porch and pointed her finger straight at Max, my big, furry canine dog. "Jake," she barked, her voice sharp and loud, like a dog yapping at a mailman. "That beast is a safety hazard." Max was just lying there, stretched out on the porch like a giant teddy bear. His eyes were closed, and his big tongue hung out a little. He didn't move, not even a wiggle. He was fast asleep, probably dreaming about chasing bad guys or chewing on a yummy bone. But Karen didn't care about that. To her, Max wasn't a sleepy dog having a nap. Oh no, she saw him like some kind of scary monster. "Dogs like that don't belong on porches," she yelled, waving her arm around. "They belong in kennels. Locked up where they can't cause trouble." I was standing by the door, leaning against the frame, holding a cup of coffee. It was warm in my hands, and I took a little sip. I tried not to laugh because Karen looked so silly, getting all worked up over a sleeping dog. Max wasn't bothering anybody. He was just snoozing, his big paws flopped out in front of him. His fur was soft and shiny in the sunlight, and he looked so peaceful. But Karen? She was acting like he was about to jump up and eat the whole neighborhood. I stayed calm and kept my voice nice and easy. He's fine, Karen, I said. He's just resting. But that wasn't good enough for her. Not even close. Her face turned red, like a big, ripe apple. She shook her head so hard I thought her ponytail might fly off. No, Jake, she snapped. This is serious. You need to move him right now, or I'm calling 911. Her voice was so loud it echoed down the street. I bet half the block heard her. The birds in the trees stopped chirping for a second, like they were surprised too. She held up her phone and waved it at me, like it was proof she meant business. I just shrugged my shoulders. Go ahead, Karen, I said, real casual like. He's not hurting anyone. I took another sip of my coffee and watched her. Max didn't even twitch. His snores got a little louder, like he was saying, I don't care what you think, lady. But my words. They made Karen even madder. Her eyes got big, and she glared at me like I'd just broken every rule in her little HOA book. She thought she was in charge, like she could boss me and Max around whenever she wanted. But she didn't know something big was coming, something that was going to turn her whole day upside down. Karen started tapping on her phone right then and there. She punched in 9-1-1 with her thumb, her lips pressed tight together. She kept staring at me, like she was daring me to stop her. Hello, she said when someone picked up on the other end. Yes, I need help. There's a dangerous animal on my neighbor's porch. Her voice was loud and squeaky, like she was telling the biggest story ever. I could hear a tiny voice on the phone, probably the 911 lady asking questions, but Karen didn't stop. It's a huge dog. A beast. It's a safety hazard, and he won't move it. I stayed where I was, leaning against the door. My coffee was still warm, and I took another sip. I wasn't worried. Not one bit. Max was still dreaming, his big chest going up and down with every breath. He didn't know Karen was yelling about him. He didn't know she was calling the police. To him, it was just another lazy day. But Karen? She thought she was winning. She thought calling 911 was going to fix everything. She thought she had the upper hand, like she was the smartest person on the street. Oh, how wrong she was. Let me tell you a little more about Karen, so you get the picture. She's the kind of person who loves rules. She's the boss of our HOA, that's the group that makes rules for our neighborhood. She walks around with a clipboard all the time, writing down stuff she doesn't like. If your grass is too tall, she writes it down. If your mailbox isn't shiny enough, she writes it down. She's got a little house 2 doors down from mine. It's super neat, with perfect flowers and a clean walkway. She's always peeking out her windows, watching everybody. She thinks it's her job to keep everything just the way she wants it. And Max? He didn't fit into her perfect little world. Karen's flip-flops were bright pink, and they looked funny slapping the ground as she paced back and forth. She was still talking on the phone, telling the 911 lady all about Max. Yes, he's huge, she said. He's taking up the whole porch. It's not safe. I could hear her getting louder and louder. She kept pointing at Max, like the 911 lady could see him through the phone. I've told him to move it, but he won't listen, she complained. She shot me another glare, her eyes all squinty and mean. She thought I was being a big troublemaker, just because I wouldn't drag Max off the porch. But here's the thing, Max wasn't just any dog. He was a K9 dog, a real police hero. He used to work with the cops, sniffing out bad guys and helping people. He was brave and smart, and he'd done so many good things. Now he was retired, living with me, and all he wanted was to nap in the sun. I knew that, but Karen didn't. She didn't know his story. She didn't know he'd saved lives. To her, he was just a big, furry problem she wanted gone. And me? I wasn't scared of her 911 call. I knew something she didn't. Something big was about to happen, and it was going to surprise her so much she wouldn't know what to say. While Karen was yelling into her phone, I looked around the cul-de-sac. It's a little circle of houses, All cozy and close together. My house is small, with a white porch and a red door. The porch is where Max likes to hang out. It's got a railing and some steps, and it's just the right size for him to stretch out. The sun was shining down, making everything look bright and happy. A few neighbors were outside. Old Mr. Thompson was watering his flowers across the street. He looked up when he heard Karen shouting, but then he just shook his head and went back to his plants. He's used to her fussing. There was a breeze blowing, rustling the leaves in the big tree in my yard. Max's fur moved a little in the wind, but he still didn't wake up. He was so comfy, so peaceful. I couldn't help but smile. Karen was making a big deal out of nothing, and it was kind of funny. But she didn't think it was funny. Not at all. She hung up the phone and crossed her arms, staring at me. "The police are coming," she said, all smug-like. "You'll see, Jake. They'll make you move that dog." I nodded, real slow. "Okay, Karen," I said. "We'll see." I wasn't mad or scared. I was calm, because I had a secret. Karen thought she was so smart, calling 911 like that. She thought the cops would show up and take her side. She thought she'd win, just like she always did when she bossed people around. But this time was different. Something was about to happen that she never expected. Something that would flip this whole mess upside down and leave her standing there with her mouth wide open. Karen tapped her foot on the ground, waiting. She kept looking down the street, like she thought the police would come zooming in any second. "You're in big trouble now," she said, smirking a little. "The HOA doesn't allow dangerous animals like that." I raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous?" I said. "He's asleep, Karen." But she didn't care. She was too busy feeling like she was in charge. She didn't know Max was a hero. She didn't know he used to wear a police vest and help catch bad guys. She didn't know the cops were his friends. And she sure didn't know what was coming next. Karen was still going on and on, talking loud into her phone like she was the boss of everything. "Yes, there's a dangerous animal loose on a porch," she shouted to the 911 operator. Her voice was so loud it bounced off the houses in our little cul-de-sac. She waved her arms around like she was trying to fly away, pointing at Max over and over. Max, my big furry canine dog, was still snoozing on the porch. He didn't move at all. His eyes were closed tight, and his big paws were stretched out in front of him. He didn't care one bit about Karen's yelling. He was probably dreaming about chasing a ball or eating a giant treat. But while Karen was busy flapping her lips and waving her phone, I saw something she didn't. Way down at the end of our street, a big black SUV rolled up super quiet. It didn't make a sound like a sneaky cat creeping through the grass. The SUV had dark windows, so you couldn't see inside. It stopped right at the corner, just sitting there. Then, the doors opened, and two guys stepped out. They were wearing dark jackets, the kind that look cool and tough. They stood by the car for a second, looking our way. Karen didn't notice them at all. She was too busy shouting and stomping her flip-flops on the ground. But me? I saw them clear as day, and I knew exactly who they were. See, Max isn't just any old dog. He's special. He used to be a police dog, a real canine hero. Back in the day, he worked with the cops, sniffing out bad guys and helping keep people safe. He was super brave and super smart. Now he's retired, which means he doesn't work anymore. He lives with me and takes it easy. But here's the cool part, even though he's retired, the police still like him a lot. Sometimes, they check on him, just to say hi and make sure he's okay. Those two guys in the dark jackets? They were Max's old pals from the police force. Their names were Officer Dan and Officer Mike, and they were here to visit him. Karen had no idea, but I did. I didn't say a single word. I just stood there on my porch, leaning against the doorframe, holding my coffee cup. It was getting a little cold now, but I didn't mind. I took a sip and kept my eyes on those two cops. They were watching us, and I could tell they thought this was funny. Karen kept talking, digging herself into a bigger mess with every word. "This dog's a menace," she yelled into her phone. A menace is something bad or dangerous, but Max? He was the opposite of that. He was a good boy, just napping in the sun. Karen didn't know that, though. She kept going. I demand an officer right now, she said, her voice all bossy and sharp. I bet the 911 operator was super confused. I mean, how could a sleeping dog be dangerous? Max hadn't moved an inch. His big furry body was still sprawled out, taking up half the porch. His snores were soft and steady, like a little song. He didn't look like a menace to anybody. But Karen was so mad, she couldn't see straight. She thought she was in charge, like she could make the police come and fix everything. She didn't know the police were already here, walking closer every second. Officer Dan and Officer Mike started moving toward us. They didn't rush or run. They just walked nice and slow, with their hands in their pockets. They were smirking. Smirking is when you smile a little because you know something funny that someone else doesn't. And oh boy, did they know something Karen didn't. Their dark jackets had little badges on them, but you couldn't see them from far away. They looked like regular guys, but I knew they were cops. Max's old friends. They were coming to say hi to him, not to cause trouble. But Karen? She was about to get a big surprise. I stayed quiet and watched it all happen. Karen was still on the phone, pacing back and forth in front of my yard. Her flip-flops went slap, slap, slap every time she turned around. Yes, it's a huge dog, she told the operator. It's scaring everyone. That was a big fat lie. Nobody was scared. Old Mr. Thompson was still watering his flowers across the street, not even looking up. The kids down the block were playing with a ball, laughing and running around. Nobody cared about Max except Karen. But she kept talking like it was the end of the world. The two cops were getting closer now. I could see them better. Officer Dan was tall, with short brown hair and a big smile. Officer Mike was shorter, with a cap pulled low over his eyes. They walked side by side, looking at Karen and then at Max. Their smirks got bigger, like they were trying not to laugh out loud. I didn't blame them. This whole thing was silly. Karen thought she was calling the police to come get Max, but the police were already here and they were on Max's side. Karen didn't see them yet. She was too busy waving her arms and yelling. I've told him to move it, but he won't, she said into the phone. She pointed at me, her finger shaking a little. I just shrugged again and sipped my coffee. He's fine where he is, I said, real calm. That made her madder. Her face turned pink, then red, like a stop sign. You'll see, Jake, she snapped. When the police get here, they'll take that dog away. She thought she'd won. She thought she was so smart. But she didn't know what was coming. The cops were almost to my yard now. They stopped just a few steps away, standing on the sidewalk. Officer Dan looked at Max and shook his head, still smiling. Officer Mike crossed his arms and tilted his head, like he was waiting for something funny to happen. Karen still didn't notice them. She was too busy talking. Yes, thank you, she said into the phone. Please hurry. Then she hung up and glared at me. They're on their way, she said, all proud-like. You're in trouble now. I didn't say anything back. I just looked over her shoulder at the two cops. They were so close now, I could hear their shoes crunching on the gravel by the road. Karen didn't hear it, though. She was too busy staring at me, thinking she'd beat me. But then, Officer Dan cleared his throat real loud like a big ahem. Karen jumped a little and spun around. Her eyes got huge when she saw the two guys standing there in their dark jackets. She didn't know who they were yet, but I did. And Max? He was still sleeping, not a care in the world. Who are you? Karen asked, her voice a little shaky now. She wasn't so bossy anymore. Officer Mike tipped his cap back a bit and said, Hey, Jake. He nodded at me like we were old friends. Karen's mouth dropped open. She looked at me, then at the cops, then back at me. You know them, she said, sounding confused. I smiled, just a little. Yep, I said. They're here for Max. Karen's face went all funny, like she didn't understand. For Max, she said. What do you mean? Officer Dan stepped closer and looked down at Max, still snoozing on the porch. Hey, big guy, he said softly. Max's ear twitched, but he didn't wake up. Dan chuckled. Still lazy as ever, huh? Karen blinked fast, like her brain was trying to catch up. Wait, she said. What's going on? The cops didn't answer her yet. They just kept smiling, like they were in on a big secret. And they were. See, Karen thought she'd called the police to come get rid of Max. But the police were already here not because of her, but because they wanted to visit their old buddy. Max wasn't just my pet. He was their friend, their teammate from back in the day. And now, they were standing right there, watching Karen make a fool of herself. Karen started to figure it out, but not all the way. Are you the officers from 9/11? She asked, her voice getting high and squeaky. Officer Mike shook his head. Nope, he said. We were just driving by. Thought we'd check on Max. Karen's eyes got even bigger. Check on him, she said. Why? She still didn't get it. She didn't know the truth about Max, but she was about to find out. The air felt buzzy now, like something big was about to happen. Karen was confused, and the cops were grinning, and I was just watching it all unfold. Max kept sleeping, his snores filling the quiet. The cops were so close now, they could have reached out and patted him. Karen was starting to look nervous, like maybe she'd made a mistake. And she had a big one. What do you think happened when they got closer? Stick around, because this story's about to get even better. Karen was so happy when she saw the two cops walking up. Her face lit up like she'd just found $1 million or won a big prize at the fair. She thought she was the winner of everything right then. Finally, she yelled, her voice all excited and loud. She pointed her finger at Max, my big furry canine dog, who was still sleeping on the porch. Officers, arrest this beast, she said, like Max was some kind of wild monster. And find this guy for breaking HOA rules. She was talking about me, Jake, because she thought I'd done something wrong by letting Max nap there. She stood tall, crossing her arms, like she was the queen of the street and the cops were her knights coming to save the day. But then something funny happened. One of the cops, a tall guy named Officer Dan, stopped walking and looked at her funny. He raised one eyebrow, like he was confused or surprised. Ma'am, he said, real slow and calm, that's no beast. He pointed at Max, who was still snoozing away, his big tongue flopped out a little. That's Max, Dan said. He's one of ours. His voice was nice and steady, like he was telling a secret that was about to change everything. Karen's mouth fell open so wide I thought her jaw might hit the ground. What? She sputtered. She sounded like she couldn't believe her ears. Her eyes got big, and she blinked fast, like she was trying to wake up from a dream. She'd been so sure Max was just a big, scary dog, a problem she could get rid of. But now, Officer Dan was saying something totally different, and it was making her brain spin. Dan didn't wait for her to figure it out. He walked right over to Max and knelt down beside him. Max was still asleep, his big furry body stretched out on the porch like a giant rug. Dan reached out and scratched Max behind the ears, real gentle like. Max's ear twitched a little, and he let out a soft snort, but he didn't wake up. This guy's a hero, Dan said, smiling down at Max like he was an old friend. Saved lives, caught crooks. He's earned his nap time. His voice was proud, like he was talking about someone really special. And Max was special. He used to be a police dog, a canine who helped the cops do their job. He wasn't just my pet, he was a star. The other cop, Officer Mike, was shorter than Dan. He had a cap on his head, pulled low over his eyes. He looked over at me and grinned, showing his teeth. Hey, Jake, he said, all friendly like. We were just stopping by to see how Max was doing. Didn't expect a 911 call about him. He chuckled a little, like it was the funniest thing ever. And it kind of was. See, they weren't here because of Karen's call. They were just driving by, wanting to check on their old pal Max. But Karen didn't know that when she dialed 911, thinking she'd get the police to come take him away. Karen's face changed fast. It went from happy and smug to bright red, redder than a big, juicy tomato. She looked like she'd just eaten something sour, or maybe like she wanted to disappear. She'd been so loud, yelling about Max being a dangerous beast. She'd called 911, thinking she was so smart, thinking the cops would come running to help her. But now, she found out she'd called the cops on a police dog and the cops were already here, laughing at the whole mess. It was like she'd tripped and fallen flat on her face, but with words instead of feet. She tried to fix it, quick as she could. "Well, I didn't know," she stammered, her voice all shaky now. She waved her hands around, like she could wave the mistake away. "I didn't know he was a one of yours." She was tripping over her words, trying to backtrack. That means she was trying to take back what she said, like hitting rewind on a movie. But it was too late. The truth was out, loud and clear. Max wasn't some random dog. He was a hero, and the cops weren't here to arrest him, they were here to visit him. Karen's big power trip, where she thought she could boss everyone around. It crashed and burned, like a toy car smashing into a wall. Let me tell you more about how it all looked, so you can see it in your head. Karen was standing in my yard, her pink flip-flops planted on the grass. Her phone was still in her hand, but now it just hung there, like she didn't know what to do with it. Her ponytail bounced a little as she shook her head, still trying to figure out what was happening. Officer Dan was kneeling by Max, his dark jacket shiny in the sun. He kept scratching Max's ears, and Max let out a little happy grunt, still half asleep. Officer Mike stood a few steps back, hands in his pockets, grinning at me like we were sharing a joke. The porch was small but cozy, with a white railing and wooden steps. Max took up most of it, his big black and brown fur spread out like a blanket. The sun was shining bright, making everything warm and golden. Down the street, the black SUV was parked, its dark windows hiding whatever was inside. The cul-de-sac was quiet now, except for Karen's sputtering and the cop's soft laughs. Old Mr. Thompson, the guy who lived across the street, peeked up from his flowers. He'd heard the yelling, but now he was watching with a little smile, like he knew Karen was in trouble. Karen's red face got even redder when Officer Dan stood up. He was tall, way taller than her, and he crossed his arms, looking down at her. "Ma'am," he said, "Max here's done more for this town than most people. He's not going anywhere." His voice was firm, like a teacher telling you to sit down and be quiet. Karen opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. She just stood there, looking from Dan to Max to me, like she couldn't believe it. Officer Mike stepped closer, still grinning. "Yeah," he said. "We worked with Max for years. He's a good boy." He looked at me and nodded. "Right, Jake." I nodded back. "Yep," I said. "Best dog ever." I took a sip of my coffee, which was cold now, but I didn't care. I was having too much fun watching Karen's big plan fall apart. She thought she was so smart, calling 911 like that. She thought the cops would come and yell at me and take Max away. But instead, the cops were here laughing, petting Max, and telling her she was wrong. Karen's hands dropped to her sides. Her phone slipped a little, and she almost dropped it. But she said, still trying to argue. "He's too big for the porch. It's against HOA rules." She sounded desperate now, like a kid who didn't want to lose a game. Officer Dan raised his eyebrow again. "HOA rules," he said. "Max doesn't care about that. He's earned his spot." He patted Max on the head, and Max finally opened one eye, just a tiny bit. He saw Dan and wagged his tail once, then went right back to sleep. Karen didn't know what to say. She'd been so sure she was right. She'd marched over here with her flip-flops and her phone, ready to make me move Max. She'd called 911, thinking she'd win. But now, the cops were telling her Max was a hero, not a beast. They weren't mad at me, they were happy to see Max. And they were laughing at her, not with her. Her big power trip was over, and she knew it. The air felt different now, like a balloon popping. All that yelling and bossing around was gone, and it was just quiet again, well, except for Max's snores. Karen looked around, like she wanted to run away and hide. Her face was so red it looked hot, like she'd been standing in the sun too long. She'd made a huge mistake, and everyone could see it. Even the kids down the street stopped playing with their ball to watch. They giggled a little, pointing at Karen and whispering to each other. Officer Mike pulled his cap down a bit and looked at me. "You okay, Jake?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "Just enjoying the show." He laughed out loud this time, a big, happy sound. Dan laughed too, shaking his head. "Never thought we'd get a 911 call about Max," he said. "This is a new one." They weren't mad at all. They thought it was hilarious. And me? I thought it was pretty funny too. Karen took a step back, her flip-flops squeaking on the grass. I didn't mean she started, but she didn't finish. She didn't know how to fix it. She'd been so loud, so sure, and now she was stuck. The truth was out, Max wasn't a problem. He was a hero. And Karen? She was the one who looked silly now. Her big plan had crashed and burned, and there was no going back. The big mess with Karen was finally over, and it was time for things to settle down. Officer Dan, the tall cop with the nice voice, stood up from where he'd been petting Max. He crossed his arms over his chest, looking big and strong, like a superhero in his dark jacket. He stared right at Karen, who was still standing there with her phone in her hand. "Ma'am," he said, real serious but calm, "next time, maybe check before you call us on one of our own." He pointed at Max, who was still snoozing on the porch, his big furry body all comfy and relaxed. "Max here's got more badges than you've got complaints," Dan added. Badges are like little prizes cops get for doing brave stuff, and Max had a bunch from his police days. Karen. She just had a bunch of grumpy things to say about everyone. Karen's face was still red, like a big cherry. She held her phone tight, squeezing it like it could help her out of this mess. But HOA fines," she muttered, her voice all quiet and shaky now. She was trying to say I'd still get in trouble with the Homeowners Association rules, the ones she loved so much. But the cops weren't listening to that nonsense. Officer Mike, the shorter guy with the cap, stepped up next to Dan. He had a big grin on his face, like he was having the best day ever. "And Jake's in the clear," Mike said, nodding at me. "Max can sleep wherever he wants." His words were loud and clear, like a big no way to Karen's silly rules. Karen didn't know what to say. Her mouth opened and closed, like a fish flopping on the ground. She'd been so sure she could boss me around and get Max off the porch. She'd called 911, thinking the police would take her side and make me move him. But now, the cops were telling her Max was a hero, not a problem. They were saying he could stay right where he was, napping on my porch like a king. Karen's big plan was falling apart, and she couldn't do a thing about it. The black SUV the cops came in was still parked down the street. Its dark windows made it look cool and mysterious. Officer Dan gave Max one last pat on the head. "See you later, buddy," he said, smiling. Max didn't even open his eyes, he just kept sleeping, his big tail giving a tiny wag. Officer Mike waved at me. "Take care, Jake," he said. "Keep that porch ready for Max." I waved back. "Will do," I said, sipping my cold coffee. The cops walked back to their SUV, their shoes crunching on the gravel. They climbed inside, and the engine started with a soft rumble. Then the SUV rolled away, disappearing around the corner like it was never there. Karen watched them go, her shoulders all slumped. She looked like a balloon that lost all its air, small and sad. She didn't say anything else. She just turned around and slinked back to her house, her flip-flops going slap, slap, slap on the pavement. Slinked means she walked away all sneaky and quiet, like she didn't want anyone to see her. Her house was 2 doors down, the one with the perfect grass and fancy flowers. She opened her door real fast and slipped inside, shutting it behind her. She was defeated, like a kid who lost a game and didn't want to play anymore. As soon as Karen was gone, something cool happened. The neighbors who'd been watching from their windows started clapping. It was like a little cheer, loud and happy. Old Mr. Thompson across the street put down his watering can and clapped his hands, smiling big. The kids down the block stopped kicking their ball and clapped too, jumping up and down. Even Mrs. Lopez, who lived next door, opened her window and gave a little cheer. Turns out, nobody liked Karen's nosy rules. She was always telling people what to do, how to cut their grass, where to park their cars, what color their mailboxes should be. Everyone was tired of it, and now they were happy she didn't win this time. Me. I just stayed on the porch with Max. I set my coffee cup down on the railing and knelt beside him. His fur was warm from the sun, soft and fluffy under my hand. I gave him a good pat on the head. "Good boy," I said, my voice nice and quiet so I wouldn't wake him up. Max opened one eye, just a tiny bit, and looked at me. Then he yawned real big, showing all his teeth, and stretched his legs out even more. His paws pushed against the edge of the porch, like he was claiming every inch of it. Then he closed his eye and went right back to sleep, snoring softly. He didn't care about Karen or her yelling. He was happy right where he was. The porch was his kingdom now. It's a small porch, with a white railing and wooden floor, just big enough for Max to stretch out. The sun was still shining, making everything warm and bright. The big tree in my yard waved its leaves in the breeze, throwing little shadows over us. It was peaceful again, like it was supposed to be. Karen. She'd think twice before messing with us again. She'd learned her lesson the hard way. She thought she could boss Max around, but Max was a hero, and heroes don't move for silly rules. I stood up and looked around the cul-de-sac. It's a little circle of houses, all cozy and close together. My house is the one with the red door and the porch where Max rules. Mr. Thompson went back to watering his flowers, humming a little song. The kids started kicking their ball again, laughing and running around. Mrs. Lopez closed her window, but I could see her smiling inside. Everything was back to normal, and it felt good. Karen's big fuss was over, and she didn't get what she wanted. Justice was served like when the good guys win in a story, and the bad guys have to go home. I thought about how it all happened. Karen had come stomping over, so mad about Max sleeping on the porch. She'd waved her phone and called 911, thinking she'd get me in trouble. But then Officer Dan and Officer Mike showed up not because of her call, but because they were Max's old pals. They told her Max was a police dog, a hero who'd earned his nap time. They laughed at her, and she turned red and ran off. It was like a big ha-ha to her bossy ways. She didn't win, she lost, big time. The clapping from the neighbors made me smile. They were glad Karen didn't get her way. She was always poking her nose into everyone's business, and it annoyed them. Like one time, she told Mr. Thompson his flowers were too tall, even though they looked pretty. Another time, she tried to fine Mrs. Lopez for leaving her trash can out an extra day. Silly stuff like that. But today? She picked the wrong fight. Max wasn't just any dog, and I wasn't just any guy. We had the cops on our side, and that made all the difference. Max kept sleeping, his snores filling the air. I sat down on the steps next to him, watching the world go by. The sun was getting lower now, turning the sky a little pink. It was still warm, and the breeze felt nice. I didn't need my coffee anymore, it was cold anyway, so I just leaned back and relaxed. Max's big head was right by my leg, and I could feel him breathing. He was so calm, so happy. That's how it should be, I thought. He'd worked hard as a police dog, and now he could rest. Karen's house was quiet now. No more yelling, no more flip-flop slapping the ground. I bet she was inside, hiding behind her fancy curtains, thinking about what went wrong. She'd been so loud, so sure she was right. But the cops shut her down, and the neighbors cheered. She wouldn't forget this day anytime soon. Next time she saw Max on the porch, she'd probably keep walking. No more 911 calls, no more HOA threats. She'd learned that Max was special, and she couldn't boss him around. The cul-de-sac felt like a happy place again. The kids' ball bounced down the street, and their giggles floated over to me. Mr. Thompson's flowers looked bright and cheerful in the sunlight. Mrs. Lopez's cat peeked out her window, watching everything. It was like the neighborhood took a big breath and said, "Phew, glad that's over." And me? I was just glad Max could keep his spot. The porch was his, fair and square. He'd earned it, like the cops said. I gave Max another pat, softer this time. "You're the best, buddy," I whispered. He didn't hear me, he was too busy dreaming, but that was okay. I knew he was happy, and that's what mattered. Karen's big fuss was done, and justice was served. She didn't get to win, and Max didn't have to move. The good guys, me and Max, came out on top, and the nosy lady had to back off. It was a perfect ending to a crazy day. Okay, so let's sit back and think about what just happened in this crazy story. It's all done now, and there's something really cool we can learn from it. Here's the thing, sometimes the quiet ones like Max, my big furry canine dog, or even me, Jake, have a lot more going on than you'd ever guess. Max didn't bark or jump around when Karen came yelling. He just stayed quiet, sleeping on the porch like nothing was wrong. And me? I didn't shout back at Karen or get mad. I just leaned on the door, sipping my coffee, watching her make a big fuss. We were calm and quiet, but we had a big secret. Max was a police hero, and I knew the cops were his friends. Karen didn't see that coming, not one bit. Karen thought she was the boss of everything. She came stomping over with her flip-flops and her phone, thinking she could tell everyone what to do. She saw Max on the porch and decided he didn't belong there. She thought she could call 911 and make him go away, like she was the queen of our little cul-de-sac. She didn't ask questions or try to find out who Max really was. She just pointed and yelled, sure she was right. But here's the funny part, she didn't see the real story until it was way too late. The cops showed up not because of her call, but because they wanted to visit Max. They told her he was a hero, not a beast, and her big plan fell apart like a tower of blocks tumbling down. That makes you wonder, doesn't it? Who's got a hidden strength in your life that nobody notices? Maybe there's someone you see every day, a friend, a neighbor, or even someone in your family who seems quiet or boring. But what if they've got something amazing inside them, something big and strong that you don't know about yet? Like Max, who looked like just a sleepy dog but was really a brave police pup. Or like me, who didn't argue with Karen but still came out on top because I knew the truth. Sometimes the people or dogs who don't make a lot of noise are the ones with the coolest stories. Let's think about Max for a minute. He's big and furry, with black and brown fur and floppy ears. He loves napping on my porch, stretching out in the sun like it's his favorite bed. He doesn't bark at squirrels or chase the mailman. He just lies there, snoring a little, happy as can be. But back when he was a police dog, he did amazing things. He sniffed out bad guys hiding in dark places. He helped find lost kids who wandered off. He even scared robbers just by barking loud. Max was a hero, and he's got badges to prove it, little shiny prizes from the police for being so brave. But now, he's quiet. He doesn't brag or show off. He just rests, and nobody would guess his big story unless they knew. And me? I'm just Jake. I live in a little house with a red door and a white porch. I like drinking coffee and reading books. I don't talk a lot or get into fights. When Karen came yelling, I didn't yell back. I didn't need to. I knew Max was special, and I knew his cop friends might show up someday. I stayed quiet, and that was my strength. Karen thought I was just a guy who didn't care about rules, but I had something she didn't expect, friends like Officer Dan and Officer Mike who backed me up. So even though I didn't look tough or loud, I had power she couldn't see. Karen's the opposite, right? She's loud and bossy. She runs the HOA, which is the group that makes rules for our neighborhood. She walks around with her clipboard, telling people what to do. Cut your grass, she says. Move your trash can, she yells. She thinks she's in charge because she makes a lot of noise. But that day, her loudness didn't help her. She didn't know the real story about Max, and she didn't stop to find out. She just jumped in, thinking she could win. But the quiet ones, Max and me, had the real strength. And when the cops told her the truth, she looked silly. Her loud voice didn't matter anymore. So what's the big lesson here? It's simple, don't judge people or dogs by how they look or how loud they are. The quiet ones might surprise you. They might have secrets, like Max being a police hero or me knowing the cops would come. Karen judged Max because he was big and on the porch. She judged me because I didn't fight back. But she was wrong about both of us. The real power wasn't in her yelling or her phone call. It was in Max's bravery from years ago and my calm way of waiting for the truth to come out. That's pretty cool to think about, huh? Now let's imagine your life for a second. Who's the Max in your world? Maybe it's your grandpa, who sits quietly in his chair but used to do big things a long time ago. Maybe he built houses or fought in a war, and you don't even know it because he doesn't talk about it. Or maybe it's your friend at school who's super shy but really good at something, like drawing or running fast. They don't show off, but they've got talent hiding inside. Or maybe it's your dog or cat, quiet and lazy, but super smart in ways you haven't seen yet. Who's got that hidden strength around you? It's fun to think about, isn't it? And what about you? Are you a quiet one with something special? Maybe you don't talk a lot in class, but you're great at building stuff with your hands. Or maybe you're quiet at home, but you've got big ideas in your head, like stories or games you could make up. You don't have to be loud to be strong. Max didn't bark to prove he was a hero, he just was. I didn't yell to beat Karen, I just waited. You can be strong in your own way too, even if nobody notices right away. That's a neat thing to remember. Karen learned that the hard way. She thought she could boss everyone because she was loud and had her HOA rules. She marched over to my house, ready to win. She called 911, thinking the cops would take Max away and find me. But she didn't know the real story. She didn't know Max was a police dog with friends who'd stick up for him. When Officer Dan and Officer Mike showed up, they laughed at her. They told her Max was a hero, and she turned red and ran off. Her loudness didn't help her, it made her look silly. If she'd been quieter and asked questions, maybe she wouldn't have made such a big mistake. So here's a little challenge for you: look around today or tomorrow and find the quiet ones. Watch them for a bit. Maybe it's someone at school, sitting by themselves, not saying much. Or maybe it's a neighbor who doesn't talk a lot but always waves hi. What's their story? What hidden strength do they have? You might not find out right away, but just wondering about it is fun. And who knows, maybe you'll spot a hero, like Max, hiding in plain sight. This whole wild ride with Karen and Max was so much fun, wasn't it? It started with a sleepy dog on a porch and turned into a big surprise with cops and clapping neighbors. Karen thought she'd win, but Max and I came out on top because we had something real: quiet strength. I'm so glad you stuck with me through the story. It was a crazy one, full of twists and laughs. If you liked it, drop a little like down below, it's like a high five for me. And share it with a friend who loves dogs or funny stories. They'll get a kick out of it too. Oh, and here's something for you to do: tell me in the comments, what would you have said to Karen? Imagine you were there, standing on the porch with me and Max. Karen's yelling about the beast and waving her phone. What would you say to her? Maybe something funny, like, "Hey, Karen, Max is sleepier than you are loud." Or something cool, like, "Leave him alone, he's a hero." Whatever you'd say, I'd love to hear it. Drop it in the comments so we can laugh together. So, we've talked about Max and me and how being quiet doesn't mean you're weak. It's pretty neat to think about, right? Let's keep that idea rolling and dig a little deeper. Imagine you're walking around your neighborhood or sitting in your classroom. You see all kinds of people, some loud, some quiet. The loud ones might get all the attention, like Karen did with her yelling and her flip-flops. But the quiet ones, they're like hidden treasures. You don't know what's inside them until you look closer. And that's what this story with Max teaches us: don't skip over the quiet ones, because they might have something amazing to show you. Let's picture Max again for a second. He's lying on my porch, his big furry body all stretched out. The sun's shining on him, making his black and brown fur look soft and warm. His eyes are closed, and his snores are little puffs of air, like a tiny train chugging along. He doesn't look like a hero right then, does he? He just looks like a big, lazy dog. But that's the trick: he is a hero, even if he's not barking or running around. He's got all those badges from his police days tucked away in his past, like medals in a box. Nobody would guess it just by looking at him napping. That's what makes him so cool. His strength is quiet, not loud. Now think about Karen. She's the loud one in the story. She came stomping over, her pink flip-flops slapping the ground, her voice big and bossy. She thought being loud made her strong. She thought yelling at me and calling 911 would fix everything. She was sure she'd win because she made so much noise. But noise isn't strength, it's just noise. When Officer Dan and Officer Mike showed up, they didn't care about her shouting. They cared about Max, the quiet hero. Karen's loudness didn't scare them or impress them. It just made them laugh. And in the end, her loud plan fell flat, while Max's quiet power won the day. That's something you can take with you everywhere. Maybe at school, there's a kid who's always talking, always waving their hand to answer questions. They might seem like the smartest or the coolest because they're loud about it. But then there's the kid in the back, the one who doesn't say much. Maybe they're doodling in their notebook or just listening. What if that quiet kid is super good at something, like math or soccer, but nobody knows because they don't brag? They're like Max, strong in a way that's hard to see at first. You'd never know unless you paid attention. Let's make it even more fun. Think about your favorite superhero. Maybe it's Spider-Man or Wonder Woman. They're awesome, right? They swing from buildings or fly around, saving the day. They're loud and flashy, with cool costumes and big fights. But what if a superhero didn't need all that? What if they were quiet, like Max? Imagine a hero who doesn't shout or show off, but just does their job and helps people without making a fuss. That's what Max was like when he worked with the police. He didn't need a cape or a loud theme song. He just sniffed out trouble and caught bad guys, quiet and steady. That's a different kind of hero, and it's just as awesome. So here's a little game you can play: be a detective in your own life. Look for the quiet heroes around you. Maybe it's your teacher. She might seem boring, just standing there talking about homework, but what if she's got a cool story? Maybe she climbed a mountain once or helped kids in another country. Or maybe it's the bus driver who gets you to school every day. He's quiet, just driving along, but what if he's got a secret talent, like playing music or fixing cars? You won't know unless you watch and wonder. It's like a treasure hunt, and the prizes are the hidden strengths you find. And don't forget about yourself. Are you loud or quiet? If you're loud, that's okay. Being loud can be fun. You can cheer for your team or laugh with your friends. But if you're quiet, that's awesome too. Maybe you've got something special inside you that nobody's seen yet. Like, are you really good at drawing pictures? Or do you know all the words to your favorite songs? Or maybe you're super kind to your little brother, even when he's annoying. That's strength, even if it's quiet. You don't have to shout it out loud to make it real. Let's go back to the story one more time, because it's so good. Picture this: Karen standing in my yard, her face all red, her phone still in her hand. She's just found out Max is a police dog, and the cops Officer Dan and Officer Mike are laughing at her 911 call. Max is still sleeping, not caring one bit. The neighbors are clapping because they're happy Karen lost. And me? I'm just chilling, patting Max on the head, knowing we won without even trying hard. It's a perfect ending, right? The quiet ones came out on top, and the loud one had to walk away. That's what I want you to remember: quiet can be powerful. Karen didn't see it until it was too late, but you can see it now. Look at the people around you: your mom, your best friend, your dog, even yourself. Who's got a hidden strength? Who's like Max, quiet but amazing? It's a fun thing to think about, and it makes every day a little more exciting. You never know when you'll spot a hero hiding in the shadows, waiting for their moment to shine. Okay, let's wrap this up with a big thank you. You stuck with me through this whole wild ride, from Karen's yelling to Max's big win. That's so cool of you. I hope you had fun hearing about Max and his Porch Kingdom. If you liked it, give me a little like. It's like a pat on the back for me. And share it with a friend who'd laugh at Karen's red face or love Max's sleepy hero vibes. It's a story worth passing around. Before I go, here's one last thing: tell me in the comments, what would you have said to Karen? Picture yourself standing there with me and Max. She's waving her phone, calling Max a beast. What would you say to shut her down? Maybe, "Hey, Karen, Max is cooler than your rules." Or, "Leave him alone, he's a police star." Whatever it is, drop it below. I can't wait to read it and giggle with you. See you in the next story, friends. I've got more fun stuff coming, so don't go far. Until then, keep your eyes peeled for the quiet heroes in your world. They might be your neighbor, your pet, or even you. They don't need to be loud to be great, they just need to be themselves. And that's the best kind of strength there is. Bye for now, and happy hero hunting.